There's one more person we're waiting for. Is she? Where's Emily? Good afternoon. So we have a press statement on the fraudulent payments from the National Youth Service case. But before I read the statement, I'll introduce my colleagues here. I have Mr. Ondari, who is the Deputy Director of Public Prosecutions in charge of economic crimes. And there is Madam Dorcas Odwar, who is the Secretary of Public Prosecution. On my left, I have Mr. Mutuku, who is the Deputy Director Public Prosecution in charge of offences against the person. And we have Madam Emily, who is in charge of Anti-Corruption Division in the Office of the Director of Public Prosecution. So I'll read the statement, and then maybe if there are any questions, then I can answer a few questions. Yeah. As you all know, the Directorate of Criminal Investigations has been conducting investigations into the fraudulent payment of funds from the National Youth Service to numerous purported suppliers with respect to pending bills totaling to Kenya shillings 8 billion. This is the first phase of the investigations involving Kenya shillings 468,996,808 paid out to 10 companies. The DCI submitted the investigation files to my office on the 8th of May 2018 for perusal and advice. Upon perusal of the files and in consideration of the evidence, I found sufficient evidence upon which to base a criminal prosecution against the suspects. However, in order to strengthen the case, I returned the files to the DCI to cover some critical areas. On 27th May 2018, the DCI resubmitted the investigation files. Upon careful perusal and evaluation of the same, I am satisfied that the evidence is sufficient to warrant urgent prosecution and that it is in the public interest to charge the following. And I have quite a number. I don't know whether I should read all of them, but I should. Okay. First of all, we have the category of the public servants, and we have one Lillian Omolo, who was the Principal Secretary, Ministry of Public Service, Youth and Gender Affairs. Richard Dubai, Director General NYS. Sami Michuki, former Acting Director General NYS. Nicholas O. Ahere, Senior Deputy Director NYS. Wellington A. Lubira, Acting Director Finance NYS. Evans Kundu, former in charge Mechanical and Transport Branch. Clement Murage, former Chief Accountant NYS. Peter Waima, former Deputy in Charge MTB. Peter M. Muritu, former Senior Superintendent NYS. Rogers Nzioka, former Head of MTB Procurement. Lucas Owino, Internal Auditor, the National Treasury. Stephen Ryungu, Internal Auditor, the National Treasury. Peter Mudhomi, Internal Auditor, the National Treasury. George O. Ouma, former in charge Operations Huduma Center NYS. Josephat Njoroge, Internal Auditor, the National Treasury. Humphrey Mbogo, Accountant NYS. Christopher M. Simbwani, former Senior Accountant NYS. Sami Mbugwa, Head of Accounts MPS, that's the Ministry of Public Service, Youth and Gender Affairs. Simon K. Kiru, Head MTB Procurement, Stephen Manyunzu, Accountant, Tabitha Ndugu, Accountant, all NYS, Sophie K. Kinywa, Examiner, Walinalo Mulupi, NYS, Patrick Ezekiel Osoro, Staff NYS, Samuel Otieno, Invoicer NYS, Michael Ojiambo, Director of Administration, Ministry of Public Service, Youth and Gender Affairs, Stephen Masharia, Invoicer NYS, Don M. Kariungu, IFMIS Buyer, Kenneth M. Mwathi, IFMIS Buyer. Then there is another category of directors and proprietors of business entities. The names I've just read are 40. I have another, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 14, another 14 who are directors and proprietors of business entities. There is Ann W. Ngirita, Phyllis Njeri, Catherine M. Y, Anthony W. Wamiti, Peter W. Kimani, James Thwita, Yvonne Gugi, Jeremiah Ngirita, Lucy Ngirita, Andrin G. Nyambura, Catherine N. Kamuyu, Sarah Muguru, Samuel Kanai, James Katululu. Business entities and Annual Investments, Jewanga Investments, Ark Road Holdings Limited, Kunjiwa Enterprises, Ameri Trade Limited, Giwako Enterprises, Jerry Cathy Enterprises, Fastlink Supplies Limited, Calabash Food Supplies Limited, and Erasats Enterprises. The public servants will be charged with several offenses, including conspiracy to commit an offense of corruption, willful failure to comply with applicable procedures and guidelines relating to the management of public funds, a breach of trust by a person employed in the public service, willful neglect to perform official duty, abuse of office, fraudulent acquisition of public property, fraudulent making payment from public revenues for goods not supplied. My office is preparing to have the suspects arraigned in court to answer to the charges tomorrow. In the first phase, investigations revealed that there was no procurement undertaken before monies were paid out. So there was no procurement whatsoever in these investigations, and this is our findings. In phase 2 of the investigations, the DCI will focus on additional areas, including companies or entities that benefited from the fraudulent payment and banks that were complicit to the offenses. In addition to prosecution, we are looking at recovering the proceeds of crime, as well as establishing the tax status of the companies and individuals involved in the crimes. In the meantime, several bank accounts that the funds were channeled through have been frozen. My office is working with the DCI and the Assets Recovery Agency in that regard. As the investigations continue, more suspects are likely to be charged. I shall also appoint 4 special prosecutors to work with my office. I urge all suspects who are in hiding to surrender themselves to the DCI or the nearest police station. The ODPP will continue to work with other agencies to ensure effective prosecution of all corruption cases to safeguard public funds. I urge any person with information that might assist in the prosecution of the above to volunteer the said to my office. The information shall be treated with utmost confidentiality. But this is not to say that we don't have sufficient evidence. We do. We do have sufficient evidence in this particular case. So I will take questions if there are any. No questions.
No questions.
Yeah.
My name is Stephen Leto from Citizen TV. My first question is the DPP running after the banks that were used to channel the funds? And number two, maybe the update on the Kenya Power scandal.
Okay, in relation to the banks, yes, we've asked for investigations to be undertaken. There are rules. The banks are supposed to report any suspicious transactions, and they're not allowed to allow cash withdrawals of above $1 million or 999, as you know. But we have noted that in this case there were such instances, and we're investigating whether they were reported to the appropriate authorities. But yes, we are investigating the banks. KPLC is still at its infancy, the investigations. So I don't have much on that, but I think I've given the directions for investigations.
Maybe a follow-up on the banks question. How many banks are on the DPP's radar, and if probably you could mention them to us? And number two, how soon do we expect this to come to an end? Investigation?
I think investigations are still ongoing. I don't want to comment on that. I will do the same once they're complete. Yeah. Yes. Can I please ask everyone to just ask one question? Yeah.
NTV. In regards to those you said you suspect some are in hiding, could you just reveal, quantify how many are in hiding?
Okay, but again, we have detectives on the ground. What we have is, so far we have 20 people who have been arrested. The arrest began in earnest early in the morning, and I think we'll know by the close of business how many are going to be in hiding. But I thought it was an important statement to make, to ask people to come forward. Yes, ma'am.
Naitwa Buya kutoka Radio Citizen, na ningefurahia kama ungenijibu kwa Kiswahili tafadhali. Kuna taarifa kwamba labda huu ununuzi ambao ulifanyika labda mwaka 2013 au 2014, sijui uchunguzi wenu umefika hivyo nyuma ama mnaangazia tu visa ambavyo vimefanyika hivi karibuni?
Kwanza nataka kuweka wazi hapa kwamba hakuna ununuzi wowote ulifanyika. Kitu cha kwanza. Yeah, sorry. Nasema wajua hii taa inaniumiza boss. Hakuna ununuzi wowote ambao ulifanyika. Na tutaenda hata mbali zaidi ikiwa itabidi tuende hivyo. Kwa haya kampuni hizi 10 tunazo, tumeangalia kutoka mwaka 2013. Na nafikiri uchunguzi huu ni kwa Kiswahili sijui tutasemaje, lakini ni pending bills ambayo ilikuwa tangu mwaka 2013, na tumeenda tumeangalia kutoka wakati huo mpaka wa leo. Naam. Naam.
Kasi hii ambayo umeanza nao bwana, je, itaendelea hivi ama ni kwa wakati huu pekee yake kwa Kenya imefikia kilele? Alafu swali la pili, kuna sakata nyingine ya badilifu wa shilingi bilioni 2 ambazo zitazungumzwa katika upanzi wa miti katika shule za msingi. Sijui kama afisi yako imesha pata fines, na kama ishapata pengine ni lipi ambalo linaendelea?
Na hii wajua hii tunavojaribu kufanya hivi sasa ni kubadilisha mienendo ambayo ilikuwa mbeleni, na sidhani itakuwa ni kitu ya leo na kesho. Hii wajua ufisadi ni kitu ambayo imeumiza sana nchi hii. Uchumi umeumiza sekta mbali. Na nadhani ni kitu ambayo itachukua muda kwanza kuweza kutekeleza, na sio mambo ya leo na kesho. Kwa hivyo nataka kuhakikishia Wakenya na nyinyi mlioko hapa ya kwamba hii itakuwa ndio mwenendo mpya ya vita dhidi ya ufisadi. Shukran.
Mr. DPP, there is the issue of National Cereals and Produce Board and the Kenya Pipeline Company. How far have you gone in terms of investigation?
I've asked for updates on the same, so I'm awaiting the updates, and I think we did post in our Twitter handle that I just recently asked for an update from the EACC and the concerned agencies. Yes.
Your predecessor also started a big war against corruption some time back, and a number of the suspects were acquitted of because of the lack of sufficient evidence. Do you think you have a watertight case against the suspects using the name?
I think so. Yeah. Yes.
My name is Leonard. The list you've given us, you said you are investigating 468 million, and the whole scandal is around 9 billion. So what happens?
I said this is the first phase. So this is the first phase. There are several departments within the NYS. There are several methods of procurement within the NYS. These are companies that we looked into because we needed to move with speed, taking into consideration that we wanted to preserve evidence. And at certain points we did have difficulties in accessing some of the evidence, and we felt that we needed to move forward because we had sufficient evidence to go ahead and prosecute. So we are going to divide this, as I've said. There's the issues of the banks, but there's also the issue of doing an in-depth analysis, and we are going to bring on board more experts to help us with the forensic analysis of NYS and the payments that were made. We are looking into, and I think you have seen, the IFMIS system itself and the problems that might be there, and maybe how best we can address the loopholes that exist. In these particular cases, these companies were paid these amounts of 468, roughly maybe 500 if we round them up, 500 million. They used some of this money to then do legitimate business. We are looking even into that, because you cannot purport to have ended up doing legitimate business by using proceeds of crime. So the investigations have just begun, and this is the first phase. And definitely not then. Yes.
Well, maybe this is my last question. This scandal appears to be dragging way back into the 2014, 2015, and the 2015, 2016 financial years. Where does the former office that was being led by Anwar Guru, Peter Mangiti, and Nelson Gidinji, the former DG, where do they feature in your investigations?
These investigations were about pending bills that were made during the tenure of the PS Lillian Molo. These other cases are before court. We have appealed on some of them, isn't it? And they're not concluded yet. And should we? Is that okay?
Give them a copy.
Yeah, I'll give you a copy of the statement. So thank you very much. I'll give them a copy. Yes.